Jessica Flores, Jessica Flores, Jessica Flores, Jessica Flores. It is unfortunate that so often the media overlooks the murder of Black and brown women, and when they do talk about it, it's all with sensationalism. I think that the murder of Black and brown women is overlooked is kind of, it's just accepted, it's something that just happens in society. And unfortunately, a lot of times, grisly details make headlines and personal stories don't, especially if it's someone who's marginalized and people don't care about them as much. And then there's also, and I don't want to outright say people don't care, because I think it's more complicated than that. I think that even someone who might deeply care is just numb to it. It just happens so often, it's normalized. So my mother is a psychotherapist, and I feel like I kind of take after her. And I talked to this woman about her sister, her murdered sister, for a whole hour, literally the length of a therapy session. I did not interview the family of one of the 51. It was someone else who was actually the sister of someone who was murdered in my neighborhood. Jessica Flores' murder she was killed in Gary, Indiana, and she lived in South Chicago Heights, which is a south suburb, not far from me. Maddie Perez is Jessica Flores' sister, and her sister was killed. She really believes that the Gary police covered it up, and I don't really know what to believe. The problem with the idea of the Gary police covering it up is it's not that corruption doesn't happen, but it would have to go beyond just the Gary police. We would have the coroner's office would have to be on it. The Illinois State Police would have to be on it, because they also confirmed the identity of the deceased. It would be such a huge cover up that I don't believe is possible. It felt more like she was unloading a lot of thoughts that she was already having, and she just needed to release them more than anything. That's why I compared myself to a therapist, because there was a lot of emotion in her voice, but it was it didn't feel like she was figuring out her emotions as she talked to me. It felt more like she knew how she felt, and a lot of it was kind of frantic. Actually, she was talking fast and getting something off her chest. I was surprised that she kind of trusted me that much. But I suspect that she was just looking for someone to trust and looking for someone who would listen to her about this.
Were you saying you don't believe she's actually dead?
I don't. I believe my sister's still missing. I believe somebody is holding her hostage or holding her, but I believe she's out there. And you know what? Here's my thoughts. It's either my sister's alive somewhere or she is gone. But she wasn't. My point is, I don't think she was killed in that car. If somebody harmed her, they did it outside somewhere. And like I said, when I spoke at the city council meeting over in Gary, Indiana, and there's a sense in Indiana of dehumanization going on in that town. And it's sad because they look at these women like, oh, she's just a drug addict. There's no value to her. She doesn't, these men treat them like they're animals because there's just no value to them because they're drug addicts, right? And that's my biggest thing. I seen it not just on the street, walking them towns, but even with the police, with the way that these people interact. And that sense of dehumanization, it's like, this is someone's mother. This is someone's daughter.
It sounds like Maddie really admired her sister's outgoingness, really admired that her sister shares with the world. And she really admired how her sister can light up the room, as she put it.
And yeah, my sister made mistakes with her drug addiction. But I can tell you one thing. She battled her demons. My sister had a mental health illness. She was diagnosed with bipolar, which when she wasn't on her medication, she would have those relapses to do drugs. So a lot of times what would trigger her to not take her medication for her mental health illness was being in bad toxic relationships with a man. and then she would end up going to drugs, you know. We battled it, you know. Like I said, I've raised her kids since they were little, and my sister would come in and out of even. That's how it was. But I can tell you that that was one person in my family that always gave the best big hugs. She loved profoundly, you know, always had that laughter, always filled with life. She was the life of the party, you know. If everybody was shy and bored or didn't want to speak up, she'd get everybody going, you know. That's who she was. She walked into a room and she could light it up. That's who she was. That's who she was. That's who she was. Yes, I'm fighting for justice and I'm fighting for the truth, you know. If she is really gone, you know, then, you know, I'm going to accept it. I'm prepared to accept it. That's the reality, you know.
I'd like to believe that I helped her get stuff off her chest, and that I helped her tell her story. I think that's the important part, because I'm not trained in therapy, and I am trained as a journalist, and I think that telling her sister's story and that that Jessica Flores is remembered, she's unforgotten. We aren't forgotten as long as the people we love us are still alive, and that's why talking to loved ones of someone who has died is worthwhile.